Valentine's Day had always been special in the town of Ravens Hollow. Every year, couples would flood the streets, exchanging roses and chocolates, basking in the glow of love. This year was no different, except for the dark secret that lurked beneath the town's picturesque charm. Eleanor Hayes had never been lucky in love. At 28, she had endured heartbreak after heartbreak, and Valentine's Day was a bitter reminder of her loneliness. She lived alone in a small apartment overlooking the old part of town, where cobblestone streets twisted like veins toward the heart of Ravens Hollow. This year, however, something felt different. An unease settled over her, a whisper in the wind that sent shivers down her spine. It started with a letter. A deep red envelope slipped under her door, sealed with an old-fashioned wax insignia she didn't recognize. The letter inside was written in elaborate cursive. My dearest Eleanor, the day of love is upon us, and I can no longer remain in the shadows. You are the light of my life, the pulse in my veins. Tonight, I will reveal myself to you. Meet me at the Rosewood Manor at midnight, where our love story shall begin. Forever yours, a secret admirer. Eleanor felt a chill as she reread the letter. She had no secret admirers, at least, none that she knew of. The handwriting was elegant but unfamiliar, and something about the words felt unsettling rather than romantic. Still, loneliness was a cruel companion, and curiosity gnawed at her. Against her better judgment, she decided to go. The Rosewood Manor had been abandoned for decades, its decayed grandeur a ghostly echo of a bygone era. As Eleanor approached, the full moon cast eerie shadows over the overgrown garden, and the cold air carried the scent of something metallic, something like blood. She hesitated at the entrance. The doors were ajar, creaking softly in the wind as if whispering secrets. Swallowing her fear, she stepped inside. The grand hall was illuminated by the flickering glow of dozens of candles, their wax pooling like melted flesh onto the aged wood. Red roses lined the staircase, their petals dark and wilting. A table stood in the center, draped in crimson silk, upon which sat a heart-shaped box. With trembling hands, Eleanor lifted the lid. Inside was a human heart, still fresh, pulsating slightly as if clinging to life. A scream caught in her throat. She staggered back, knocking over a candle, its flame licking at the silk cloth. Footsteps echoed from the corridor beyond. Slow. Deliberate. Eleanor, a voice crooned, deep and affectionate. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man dressed in an old-fashioned suit, his pale face stretched into an unnatural grin. His eyes gleamed like polished onyx, bottomless and unblinking. Who are you?" Eleanor stammered, pressing herself against the wall. The man tilted his head, amused. "Your admirer, of course." "I don't know you," she gasped. "Oh, but I know you. I have watched you, adored you, and now," he stepped closer, his breath warm against her skin. "Now, you will love me too." Eleanor turned to run, but the door slammed shut. The room grew colder, the candles flickering wildly as whispers filled the air, ghostly voices murmuring of love, of obsession, of death. Her admirer reached into his pocket and withdrew a delicate silver locket. He opened it, revealing a picture of Eleanor, one she had never taken. Beneath it was a lock of her own hair. She choked on a sob. "You're insane." His grin widened. "Love makes us all mad, my dear." The shadows in the room twisted and convulsed, forming clawed hands that reached for her. The walls pulsed, veins bulging through the old wallpaper, bleeding black ichor. Eleanor screamed as the hands seized her wrists, pulling her toward the table, toward the still-beating heart. "Tonight," he whispered, stroking her cheek with ice-cold fingers, "you will be mine forever." As darkness consumed her, Eleanor realized the truth too late. Love had never been her salvation. It had been her doom. They say love is the purest emotion. But love, in its rawest form, is obsession. And obsession? Well, that's where things get messy. I've watched her for months. Anna Montgomery. Her laughter drips like honey, her smile cuts through my soul like a blade. She doesn't know it yet, but she belongs to me. Every blink, every step, every breath, it's all mine. And tonight, on Valentine's Day, I will show her just how much she means to me. The plan is perfect. I've rehearsed it in my head 100 times, each scenario looping like a film reel. First, the letter. A deep crimson envelope slipped into her mailbox, written in perfect cursive. Asterisk, my dearest Anna, your beauty has haunted me for so long. Tonight, we will finally be together. Forever, asterisk. She'll read it. She'll feel that electric shiver of uncertainty. That delicate little pulse of fear. And then, she'll lock her doors. A false sense of security, adorable, really. She won't know that I've already been inside. That I know every creaky floorboard, every drafty window. That I've stood in her bedroom and watched her sleep. I arrive at her house at exactly 11:58 p.m. The world outside is quiet, blanketed in the deceptive serenity of fresh snow. Her porch light flickers, a weak, dying heartbeat. I inhale deeply. The air is thick with the scent of roses and something deeper, something metallic. My knife is heavy in my pocket, a comforting weight. But I don't want to use it. Not yet. I want her to know. To understand. I slip in through the back door. The lock was simple, a child could have picked it. Her living room is bathed in soft candlelight, the remnants of a lonely dinner for one still on the table. 2 wine glasses, but only one half drained. The other? Untouched. My heart swells. She's waiting for me. Upstairs, a floorboard creaks. My pulse quickens. I step forward, silent as a shadow, gliding through the darkness. I take my time, drinking in every detail, the framed photos of friends who don't deserve her, the books she loves, the delicate perfume that lingers in the air. Her bedroom door is closed. I press my palm against it, feeling the warmth of her presence on the other side. Slowly, gently, I push it open. There she is. Curled beneath her blankets, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. A sleeping angel. I step inside, closing the door behind me. My fingers itch to touch her, to brush the hair from her face, to trail down her throat where her pulse flutters so beautifully. But I resist. I want her awake for this. I whisper her name. Just once. Her eyes flutter open, hazy with sleep. Confusion knits her brows together, and then... fear. She tries to scream, but I press a gloved finger to her lips. Shoo, darling, I murmur. It's me. It's always been me. She thrashes, her body twisting in panic, but I pin her wrists with ease. The terror in her eyes is intoxicating. Why are you doing this? She chokes out, her voice trembling. I sigh. Because I love you. And love, I smile, leaning closer, demands sacrifice. The struggle is brief. I let her fight, let her believe she has a chance. But she doesn't. I was made for this. For her. When it's over, I cradle her lifeless body in my arms, stroking her hair as tears prick my eyes. She looks so peaceful now, so perfect. She is mine, finally, completely. I reach into my pocket, pulling out the final gift, the silver locket, engraved with our initials. I clasp it around her throat, pressing a final kiss to her cold lips. Happy Valentine's Day, my love. Outside, the snow falls in thick, quiet flakes, muffling the world in a blanket of white. Love is the purest emotion. And love, in its truest form, never dies. Valentine's Day is supposed to be about love, but for us, it became a night of terror we would never forget. It started as a dare, 4 of us, 2 boys and 2 girls, deciding to spend Valentine's night at Ravenswood Asylum, the long-abandoned mental hospital on the outskirts of town. Legend spoke of unspeakable horrors that had happened there, tortured patients, vanished doctors, and eerie whispers that still echoed through the halls. We thought it would be fun. A spooky adventure. We were wrong. The drive up was uneventful, the road winding through dead trees that clawed at the sky like skeletal fingers. The asylum loomed ahead, a crumbling monolith of shattered windows and rotting stone. A rusted gate, barely clinging to its hinges, groaned as we pushed through. Creepy as hell, Jake muttered, adjusting his grip on the flashlight. It's just an old building, Sarah shrugged, trying to sound braver than she felt. As we stepped inside, the air was thick with decay. The scent of mildew and something metallic, something like blood, clung to the walls. Peeling wallpaper revealed sinister etchings beneath, strange symbols scratched into the surface. A sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut behind us. Okay, that was just the wind, right? Emma's voice wavered. Yeah, I said, but I didn't believe it. We moved deeper inside, our flashlights slicing through the darkness. The asylum was massive, its labyrinthine halls stretching endlessly, each turn leading us further into its bowels. We passed rusted gurneys, overturned wheelchairs, and rooms with patient names scratched onto their doors. Then, the whispers began. At first, I thought it was my imagination. But then I saw the others react, eyes darting, breath hitching. Words too faint to understand, voices hissing from the shadows. This place is haunted, Jake whispered. We should go back, Emma said, gripping my arm. But Sarah had other ideas. Let's check out the basement, she grinned. That's where they kept the worst of them, right? Against our better judgment, we followed. The staircase was narrow and cold, the air thick and suffocating. As we reached the basement level, the light dimmed, as if the darkness itself was alive. A long corridor stretched before us, lined with heavy iron doors. Some hung open, revealing padded cells, others were still locked, rusted shut. The air was filled with distant, rhythmic tapping. What is that? I breathed. Jake shone his flashlight ahead. I don't know, but we should. Then the light flickered out. Complete darkness swallowed us. Panic surged. Emma screamed. Something moved, shuffled, in the dark. Footsteps echoed, but not ours. The whispers grew louder, an eerie chorus of laughter and sobbing. Then, a voice. Deep, guttural. You shouldn't have come. A flashlight flickered back on Jake's. For a split second, we saw something. A figure, gaunt and grinning, standing inches away. Hollow eyes. A mouth stretched too wide. Then the light died again. Chaos erupted. We ran, blindly crashing into walls, tripping over debris. I grabbed Emma's hand, dragging her behind me as we sprinted back toward the stairs. But Sarah wasn't with us. Sarah. Jake shouted, spinning wildly. No answer. Only laughter, low, mocking, everywhere. Then, the worst sound of all. A scream. Sarah's scream. Cut off as if a hand had smothered it. We didn't stop running until we burst outside. The asylum stood behind us, silent, watching. We didn't wait. We jumped into the car and sped away, leaving Sarah behind. We called the police, but when they searched the asylum, they found nothing. No trace of Sarah. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there at all. To this day, her disappearance remains a mystery. But sometimes, on cold February nights, when the wind is just right, I swear I can still hear her whispering my name. Valentine's Day is supposed to be about romance, but for me, it became the most horrifying night of my life. It all started when I bought an old Ouija board from a local auction house. It was a last-minute decision, an impulse fueled by boredom and curiosity. The board was ancient, its wooden surface scratched with eerie symbols, the planchette smooth and well-worn. The auctioneer mentioned it had a strange history, something about previous owners experiencing misfortune, but I dismissed it as a marketing trick to drive up the price. That night, I decided to celebrate Valentine's Day alone in my room, playing with the Ouija board. My friends had plans, and I had none. The idea of contacting spirits on a night dedicated to love amused me, though I didn't really believe in ghosts. I dimmed the lights, lit a few candles, and placed the board on my desk. With a deep breath, I rested my fingertips on the planchette and spoke the traditional opening words. Is there anyone here who wishes to communicate? For a few moments, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the planchette began to move. Yes. My pulse quickened. I chuckled nervously. Who are you? The planchette slid across the board, spelling out, lost love. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Did you love someone? Still do. A gust of cold air rushed through my room, snuffing out one of the candles. My breath came out in visible puffs, the temperature dropping drastically. Who do you love? I whispered, suddenly uneasy. You. I yanked my hands away from the board. The room felt suffocating. My heart pounded. Then, the planchette moved on its own. Why leave? The letters spelled it out slowly, deliberately. My throat tightened. I hadn't moved it, I swear I hadn't. You're messing with me, I whispered to myself, trying to rationalize. But I was alone. No one else was here. Then my bedroom door creaked open. I spun around, my pulse hammering. The hallway was pitch black, the darkness somehow alive. The air carried the faint scent of roses, mixed with something metallic, something like blood. A whisper slithered through the silence. Stay with me, forever. I turned back to the board. The planchette darted wildly, spelling out, mine. The candle flames flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. My reflection in the window looked wrong. Its mouth was stretched too wide, its eyes black voids. And then it smiled. I bolted from my room, the Ouija board crashing to the floor behind me. The whispers followed, whispering my name, promising undying love, eternal devotion. I slept at a friend's house that night, too terrified to return home. The next day, I burned the Ouija board in the backyard, watching as the flames consumed the wood. But even as it turned to ash, I swore I heard it whisper one final message. You can't burn love. Ever since that night, every Valentine's Day, I wake up to find a single red rose on my pillow. And I live in constant fear, knowing that something, or someone, is still waiting for me. Valentine's Day was supposed to be a day of love, but for Nathan Carter, it became a nightmare that he would never wake from. It started a year ago when Oliver Hayes, a quiet, artistic boy, had harbored a secret. He had loved Nathan from afar, watching him from the corners of the school hallways, cherishing every stolen glance. Oliver never meant for anyone to know. His love was something sacred, something private. But secrets have a way of unraveling, and one cruel mistake cost him everything. Someone had found Oliver's journal, filled with poems and sketches of Nathan, and instead of keeping it to themselves, they gave it to him. Nathan, arrogant and popular, found it amusing. He showed it to his friends, reading Oliver's words aloud in front of the whole cafeteria, laughing at his feelings. The room had filled with jeers and taunts, and Oliver had run out in tears, humiliated beyond words. That night, he took his own life. His death shook the school, but the guilt never truly reached Nathan. He moved on, burying it under bravado, convincing himself it wasn't his fault. It was just a joke, just some harmless fun. But the past never stays buried for long. A year later, on Valentine's Day, strange things began happening to Nathan. It started with a note in his locker, written in a familiar handwriting. Did you ever love me back? His heart pounded as he crumpled the paper, glancing around, but no one was there. He told himself it was some sick joke. Some prank by someone who wanted to remind him of Oliver. But the next note came during lunch, slipped into his bag when he wasn't looking. I waited for you, Nathan. Why didn't you stop me? Cold sweat dripped down his back. The cafeteria was buzzing with conversation, but all he could hear was the pounding of his heart. He told himself he was imagining things until his phone buzzed. A message. from Oliver's number. Meet me where it happened. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't possible. Oliver was dead. His number had been disconnected. His grave had been visited. And yet, driven by some unseen force, maybe guilt, maybe fear, Nathan found himself at the school rooftop where Oliver had jumped. The cold wind howled around him as he stepped onto the edge, the exact spot where Oliver had stood a year ago. His breath came in ragged gasps, his hands trembling. Then, he heard it. A whisper, soft and sorrowful. "Why did you laugh?" Nathan turned, and there he was, Oliver. His face was pale, his lips bloodless, his eyes dark voids filled with pain. His school uniform was damp, stained with the memory of his death. Nathan stumbled back, his vision blurring. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to?" Oliver's voice cracked, his expression contorting into something twisted, something vengeful. "You made me nothing but a joke. Now, let's see how funny it is when no one remembers you." Darkness swallowed Nathan whole. His screams echoed in the night, but no one heard. The next morning, his locker was empty. His seat in class remained unoccupied. His name was not called in attendance. Pictures of him in yearbooks faded like ink in water until there was nothing left. By evening, no one in school even remembered Nathan Carter had ever existed. But on Valentine's Day, a single note appeared in an empty locker, scrawled in Oliver's handwriting. "I loved you. Did you ever love me back?"